So, really excited, Brent, to have you here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You drove up from Tuscaloosa this morning.
I did. There's a lot of sad people in Tuscaloosa.
My wife is a sad person in Tuscaloosa, but I got great pleasure. I'm a Baylor Bear, and I got great pleasure. Is anybody here from Alabama? Alabama fans? Roll Tide.
There's got to be some.
My wife's a Roll Tide. I took great pleasure in seeing a coaching issue cause Alabama not to make it to the next round of a contender in the playoffs. I'm a Baylor Bear, so we're rooting for Baylor to come beat Oklahoma this weekend.
Yeah, there's some children in Tuscaloosa that, since they were born, their team has never not been in the playoffs, so they don't know how to adjust. So it's kind of fun. I'm an Auburn guy, so it was kind of fun for me that day. But it's fun. Tuscaloosa is a great city to live in. We really appreciate being there as a family.
Yeah, so this is a show we do called Fuller Speed Ahead. And really, it's you can find it on FreightWaves TV, which is on the Apple TV now. So if you have Apple TV, Roku devices, you can actually watch FreightWaves TV. And what I do is I sit down and talk and interview someone from the industry. It could be a technology vendor, it could be an entrepreneur, it could be a venture capitalist, it could be someone like yourselves. So anytime that you get to Chattanooga, we'd love to interview. Unfortunately, just because like the energy, it takes a lot of, this is like, it can exhaust it. Can't do a lot today, so I can only do about 2 or 3 a day. I think we got 4 today, otherwise it starts to lose it. But do tune in. But Brent, you've been at Truckstop. Truckstop's gone through a lot of transitions over the last couple of months. You guys started, when did you start? When did the Truckstop story start?
We talked
in
about
the late 2000s, early 90s?
Transitioning the company in 2013. So Truckstop started in 1995, and a lot of the guys in this room, I'm sure, hopefully are Truckstop customers. But we started in 95, but in 2013, our founder made the decision to really start to begin to broadly grow the company. And so it started in 2013.
And so you guys, from 2013, then you had private equity in the business.
We did not. In 2013, we were completely privately held.
But you took private equity
Right.
when was that?
Okay.
I apologize.
Am I loud?
Didn't turn you on. Or you turned
Am I not on?
There you go.
When did you guys
My
take?
wife says I'm loud enough as it is. So.
When did you guys take investment?
In 2016.
2016.
Yeah,
okay.
with Burgal Sage Mount. Yeah.
And then recently, you guys took venture money or private equity money in your business just a couple of months ago.
Correct. Yeah. In April of this year, Iconic bought out Burgal Sage Mount's minority share in the company. They bought a majority share. Iconic did in the company, which kind of ushered in a totally different point of view with our company on how we wanted to grow and serve the industry. With our founder now selling a majority share in the company. But we took on equity money, Craig, predominantly because we knew we were going to grow the company, because the marketplace was changing dramatically, as everybody in this marketplace has seen. And we felt like we wanted good advice on how to navigate that growth. It wasn't a money play, it wasn't any of those things. It was just total to understand how we wanted to navigate growth so we could serve the customer the best.
So how does, I look at, Uber gets a lot of attention. And we talked
Sure.
this morning, my opening was about all of the venture capital investing that's going into space. And that's both exciting because it brings a lot of
Sure.
new energy, a lot of young people, but it also changes the way the business operates. But you guys went from a legacy technology company that grew up in the internet age to now in this sort of digitization. How are you positioning, or how is Truckstop positioning itself to sort of thrive in the next iteration of the industry?
Right, that's a great question. Well, we saw in 2013 a lot of the new entrants coming in the market. Look, new entrants are great because they push technology, or they push advancement, not just technology, but advancement for all of us a lot faster than maybe some would even be comfortable doing. Trucking is a well-established foundational part of the American economy, and making that transition to what it needs to next so it can be more efficient. These new entrants were big catalysts of change for that. And so we recognized that in 2013. And so we were prepping our company, because we're such a dominant player inside of the spot market, serving about 75,000 customers. We knew that was going to change. And so we knew we needed to change in order to really help the market transition. So we were preparing for those 4 years to really get ready for the digital movement of freight to start to happen for the marketplace. And so we were able to build all that up till this year, and in November of this year, we launched a digital freight matching marketplace that enables all the marketplace to use the technology to be able to advance their company.
So you guys are getting into brokerage, or
No, never. We'd never do that. We would alienate all 10,000 of our brokerage companies really quickly. We never want to do that. We only want to enable the brokerage companies to be able to grow their businesses, and technology is a big part. As you know, being a former broker yourself, you know that technology is a big part of them being able to grow their businesses.
So what does it mean when you say digital matching? And this is a room full of truckload asset-based carriers that often, I think everybody in the room, or a large percent of the room, actually have brokerage operations and are likely customers of Truckstop. I'm curious, when you get into the matching, if you're not the broker, what is your role? Are you guys the NASDAQ of trucking? Do you play the role as the marketplace in the exchange?
Yeah, we would be the data connection in the middle. We'd be the API hub where as many parties that want to participate into it can connect in digitally or electronically and be able to move freight within the system openly. So if you think about some of the private marketplaces that have come up, and there's been some really great companies, you mentioned a few of them, that have a technology they offer that comes just from their company out to a marketplace. Well, that's wonderful for their business. It's not wonderful for everybody else's business. There has to be a technology partner to be able to provide that to the entire part of the market. And the reason that is you've got billion-dollar companies and you've got $5 million companies that play in this marketplace. So who's going to enable the entire marketplace to work so the dynamics of the marketplace work for the marketplace and for the consumer? So that's very important in our eyes in order to be able to enable these customers to sustain their businesses.
I mean, the Ubers and the Convoys really want it in a walled garden. They want to maintain the customer, the capacity and the freight inside their own ecosystem.
Right.
But you're talking about a broader sort of play around a marketplace that basically asset carriers and other brokers can participate.
Sure, absolutely. It's always been our mantra as a company to help every business succeed, no matter what, no matter their size. So we develop technology that allows them to be able to digitally match freight, and that's basically, digital means frictionless, right? It's personless. So it's automating the things that need to be automated. That where a brokerage company can take their carrier management group that now is making these manual phone calls on standard freight, where how can you automate that process where the standard stuff that's easier to move can be automated, and then the harder stuff that still takes a manual connection is still available at the same time. So you're basically taking the ability for a business to produce, you're taking technology and increasing that with the same number of employees that they have. So if you've got 25 employees, what if you could double their production?
I think for asset carriers that seem to understand more about the cost side of it, not so much the margin side, but the operational cost side. Much more so than some of the freight brokerages do in terms of because they're far more tuned to cost elements and optimization of cost than they are otherwise.
Right. Well, when you consider that 40% of our brokerage costs. So when you think about the brokerage industry, our 10,000 customers are split right down the middle on the brokerage end. 5,000 are non-asset brokerage companies. 5,000 are asset-based brokerage companies, and a lot of them are sitting in this room. And so, but the commonality of cost is the same. It still costs 40% of their freight movement cost in the carrier management end. So if you can automate that by a product that enables every company to do it, then you're reducing cost in one area and you're increasing production in another. We call it volume and velocity, the two V's. So that's our whole goal as a company, is to enable companies to be able to grow.
So what is your message to your customers and to this room where Uber's gone out and doesn't have to make a profit, at least what has been reported? Convoy doesn't have to make a profit. These are when you raise venture capital, you're actually, it suggests that you're losing money because you're having to accumulate that cash to manage working capital. What is your message to companies that are in the room that actually have to make a profit? How do they compete against that?
Well, I think our message is, the companies you mentioned are good companies, and they're trying to grow their businesses. Our message to any brokerage customer of ours or any asset player in the marketplace is, how do you leverage the things that are in the market or new in the market to run your business better? And so there's got to be somebody that can provide this type of technology to a marketplace. This is what we did in 1995. We enabled a marketplace to work online to move all their freight. All right, so this next digital advancement is the next generation of that, on how do you automate and make things easier and more efficient for the broker to do it. And you do it by taking the manual processes out. And so you guys, as having a bottom line, you guys all measure it. We do too. I mean, we're a technology company. We measure things by efficiency just as much as you do. And to me, it's how is freight going to move today, and then how's it going to move tomorrow? So the automatic marketplace, or the automated marketplace, is going to be, in the next 5 to 7 years, is going to be standard for all of us. So how does spot market freight or brokerage freight, how does that move today? And then how's it going to move? How is all freight going to move more electronically as the marketplace moves forward?
You said 5 to 7, it's going to be electronic, which means humans are not going to be involved unless there's an exception, or unless it's special projects. Is that your view?
Well, I think this is trucking, and you've been in this, your family grew up in this, and I've been in it for 20 years. And last time I checked, humans are pretty relationally oriented. We like to have relationships where relationships are important. And I don't think you're ever going to take that out of the trucking industry or out of the freight industry, because it's so complex. This isn't a straight line like booking a flight or getting a car to take you somewhere. It's much more complex than that. So you talked about exceptions. It'll be a long time before there's the true automation happens in it, or if ever. Certainly we're preparing for enabling the marketplace to keep what's important to them, which is the relationship to the person that's driving the truck or to their shipper customer, and enabling that to happen even faster.
So this year's market's been soft.
A little bit. Normal. I'd say it's normal.
You think it's normal?
We'd say it's absolutely normal.
Do you think that's just a function of more freight is now handled by brokers and third-party logistics companies? Because, I mean, if you look at the operating ratio, which is published on there, is that the majority of, as an industry, the majority of ORs, I mean, some of it is accounting depreciation, but the industry as a whole has actually had a really rough year, even worse 15 to 16. So you almost wonder if it's amount of share that brokers are taking a larger percent of the overall pie versus, and they're taking share from the asset guys. Do you subscribe to that, or do you think that fundamentally that the market is actually pretty back to where we were in 17?
Well, here's what I would say. Look at the data. You guys were looking at data on the screen. I can't tell you how important it is to look at data. It's probably one of the most important things to grow your business. And most important, as you just mentioned, how do you anticipate those things? So we track and trend this, and have for more than a decade with our Transforecast product. And we look at the market demand index. So if you look at last year, or the last 18 months before December of this 2017, the marketplace was at a 40-year high. All right, just take that as we're going to store it up. It's a season of plenty for all of us. But when you look at the average number of loads that are booked in the spot market, we look at that every single day, and then you look at the trucks to freight index, which is we call the market demand index. It's come back down to normal. 30 is a normal for us. But you were talking about freight, so that could be part of it, because there's more freight handled today by brokers than ever. 20 years ago, it was 4% of the marketplace. Now it's somewhere between 25 and 30% of all the freight in the marketplace.
It strikes me is that if you look at it from a volume standpoint, that it's hard when you're using load board data and talking to brokerages, which is the majority of your customers, to drive all your conclusions that the market is as strong as it was 2 years ago. Because on the
I wouldn't say it's strong. I'd
but
say
you said this is a normal year.
It's a normalized year if you just look at it. It's certainly not where it was in 2015, where we had a real imbalance. What you've got typically, when, like I said, that we have a 30 watermark on our market demand index. And that means 30 means there's just as many trucks as there is freight in the spot market. And the spot market is a leading indicator. It's about a 6-month leading indicator to what the contract market's going to do. I see a lot of heads shaking like this. Okay, so we look at what's the balance in that, and right now it's been hovering between 31 and 29, 27, somewhere in there, which means it's pretty balanced. And to me, this is what I hear, because I talk to shippers, I talk to brokers, I talk to carriers, and I talk to large carriers and small carriers. And the thing that I look at is that when it's balanced, nobody's happy. The shippers putting pressure back on the large carriers for their contract freight. The brokers are putting pressure back on the small carriers for the freight that they move in the spot market, and everybody's pushing back and forth, so nobody's super happy.
But the issue in this room is that their costs have gone up double digits. Their costs have gone up since 15.
Right.
You've got driver wages have gone up double digits. You have fuel that's higher than it was in 15. You have cost of equipment. It's harder to find drivers.
Don't forget insurance.
Insurance with these nuclear verdicts is going to be demonstrative in these renewal cycles.
Right.
I mean, how do the guys that own the trucks deal with these types of situations? What are your customers telling you?
Well, remember on the carrier end, we do business with 65,000 pretty much owner operators. And so that's the guys that own 1 to 9 trucks. So those guys are pretty flexible. And depending on the part of the market, they're doing, a lot of them are doing pretty well. A lot of them are doing average. Some of them are doing less than last year because planning is a big part of business. What we hear is the rates aren't high enough, the rates aren't high enough, the rates aren't high enough. Well, you hear that no matter what in any market.
They always think the rates aren't high enough. Even last year they were.
And they have the same cost issues that a fleet would, whether you're a 100 truck fleet or a 400 truck or a 1,000 truck fleet. We have not seen any decline in carrier registrations or carrier customers. So if the marketplace was struggling, especially on the small carrier, the really micro carrier, the owner operator end, you would see a tremendous amount going out of business, like you might have done in 2008, somewhere in there. But we haven't seen that at all. So our carriers are still just as strong as ever. The number that sign up for us every month and the number that go out of business about a normal. So we haven't seen a big migration or a big change in that.
I talk to a lot of people that talk about the bankruptcies, and they're like, all these, these carriers are going bankrupt. It means capacity is leaving, and you have to remind them that those trucks, those drivers are still in the industry. They haven't left. It doesn't mean that operating authority's out.
Yeah. Well, what's always shocking to me, Craig, is I entered this market in 1998. I've been in trucking and around industry my whole life, but I entered into trucking in 98. In 98, there were 3.5 to 3.6 million commercial trucks available inside the marketplace. How many are there today? 3.5 to 3.6 million trucks in the marketplace. So the capacity is still the same. So the costs are different, efficiency ratios are different. This is why looking at the Sonar data, looking at the Truckstop data, look at the data in the marketplace to be able to anticipate things is more important than ever. Because if you can anticipate a downturn, you can adjust for it. If you don't anticipate a downturn, the market's going to be harder. Because that's, to me, the most important things. And I think that's one of the big advantages and why we came up today to be with you on this, is to really talk about how that can be important to a market. Not just the product, because a product is only as good as how well you use it. You can adopt all the technology, you can buy all the data you want. If you're not really building it into your business, you're not getting the advantage on it. Yeah. And we got an old industry that's in a great, wonderful, incredible industry that's transitioning. And so that transition's tough.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to sort of watch the Truckstop story, and congratulations. Is the migration. I talked to one of your former investors when they first invested, and they said our website was very dated. It was like it hadn't changed from the first iteration. Yeah. But just the transition that you guys have made in the past couple of years and this year is pretty remarkable, where you're now not just talking about the disruption, but you guys are a part of that story. So.
Well, to us, it's so important to help the customer solve problems they want solving. How are they solving their ability to find and move freight? How are they solving the problem for the planning of that freight? How are they solving the problem for payments and analytics, and all that going back into a system that allows them to do a P&L at the end of the month? From our small carrier standpoint, from a large carrier, from a brokerage standpoint, it's really how are they able to get that data and utilize it to create efficiency in their business? And to me, that's the most important thing.
So if you could leave this group with one piece of advice that they can take home and implement in their business, what is it?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing I'd say to you guys is, and I love trucking. I've loved it my whole life since I was a little boy working on a dock, loading my dad's trucks with the steel that we had just cut by the machines. And so I've loved it my whole life, is really understand how you can integrate products into your business that can help you create more efficiency. I know that sounds kind of funny, but I've got 6 kids. They're all very different. All right, so they produce a lot of different things that they need. And so how are my wife and I adjusting to their growth? How are you guys going to adjust to this industry as it digitally changes? And it's going to change, because spot market freight's going to become more automated. Contracted and dedicated freight's going to become more automated. And how can technology, or how can the providers in this industry really help you be more successful with the employees you have now, or the employees you're going to have in the future? And I think that's another big thing, is really understand the dynamic of what do you need from the staffing, the associates, the employees, whatever you want to call them, that's going to help you change your business, because this business is going to become more efficient through automation, although you're never going to remove the relationship.
It's going to become an exception management, particularly in the.
Well, I think so, in a way, yeah.
Well, Brent, thanks for your time today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, pleasure.